All right. Thank you so much for joining Straight Out of Savannah. I am so super excited to be here. I have a most amazing guest. Jean July is here, and she's going to share a little bit about her journey, who she is, what she can do, and how she can help you. So, Jean, take it away.
Thank you so much, Tammy. Yes, I am Jean July. I am a minister, spiritual counselor, and psychic medium. Um, I want to start off, I started out in the entertainment business, and I was in the entertainment business for 40 years as a vocalist and dancer and toured and traveled and all these things. Um, but I really stepped into my gifts as a psychic medium, studying with different teachers and circles around. It's been almost like 5 years now doing this work.
Yes.
Yeah, so I've had a lot of, it always usually starts in the church. So, growing up Methodist, and then going into New Thought and all these things, and Assembly of God, you're trying to find yourself spiritually, but it wasn't until I moved to LA that I finally everything started developing in a way that I knew, okay, this is a gift that I'm meant to use. Um, yeah. So, um, but yeah, that's what I do. As a psychic medium, well, should I tell you a little bit how this started? All this little
I
bit.
was gonna ask that. I was waiting, but
Okay.
I had to tell you about your earrings. They're beautiful, and I love them.
Thank you. They were a gift. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Um, okay, so how it all started is having certain things happen as I was growing up, having feelings of, some energy or person is behind me, but there's no one there. Um, Hearing things about people and, and I say something and they're like, well, how did you know that? And it's like, I don't know. I just know. But it wasn't until I was truly an adult and I moved here to Los Angeles that I started attending a church, which is a New Thought church, metaphysical church, and it was the pastor was Reverend Della Reese, and
So, what drew you to that, though?
because I was attending Unity churches, not only from where I came from in Texas, but then when I moved to LA, I had attended a Unity church, but I had heard about uh, Reverend Della's church. And strangely enough, I saw her talk about it on Oprah years, back in the early 90s. And so I had a friend who from Texas who was living here, and I was telling him about, trying to find this church. He goes, "Oh yeah, her church is over here and blah blah blah. This hotel they meet, you know." And so I started attending, and I loved it because it was, you know, majority of the people were black. Even though it was a New Thought church, we were kind of like, I think what other New Thought people or Methodist, not Methodist people, but metaphysical people would say, oh man, that's the Jesus church. And so because people were having, Holy Ghost experiences, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know, and so I started taking classes with one of the resident ministers, Dr. Charles Brown, who now is still my pastor and mentor. And he was teaching classes on gifts of the Holy Spirit and all these other classes. But it was during that class that I really started to, I guess, have these what do you call like supernatural experiences
Yeah.
and things that, I was picking up, and just this whole internal switch that was going on spiritually within me. So, um, it was about 2017 that Dr. Charles split off, and a lot of us followed him. And I, tending the church, helping out, and he looked at me, and honestly, and like I said, he is, well, he's an incredible man, and that he is truly a prophet. I don't say that loosely. A lot of people want to say that that's a prophet, but it's like, no, you don't understand.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
So he said, well, it's in 2017, he came up to me and he said, well, it's time for you to be ordained. And I looked at him, I'm like, what? He goes, no, it's time.
For real, for real.
For real, for real. And I didn't know what to say. I said, I don't know what to say because, inside me, I'm like, man, I'm not a minister. I'm not, this or that. I said, I don't know what to say. He said, well, you can say thank you. I'm like, oh. So anyway, I got ordained in 2017, maybe 2016, probably 2016, 2017, it was 2017. And sitting up on the pulpit, and he knew that I had these gifts. And so he would always, ask at the end of service, does anyone have a message or a word for the congregation, for the church? So I'd be sitting up there during service, and before he would ask that question, and I would just hear like this, almost like a whispering in my ear. And I would say, okay, all right, Spirit, you're telling me something. And it would be like, to tell you what it looked like for me from the pulpit, it would be like someone taking a camera, and just kind of panning. And then I would hear stop. And it would be this person who needed to hear this message. So I would, get up and I would say, well, Sister Barbara, I'm hearing this for you. And I would give her this message, and it would be like, okay, this is the norm. This is the norm. So I'm thinking, okay, it's just working in the church. But then these odd things would happen. I would be out at a bar with a friend, and we'd just be sitting and talking. And all of a sudden, I feel this energy come in. And it's usually on my left side that I feel it. And I'm like, I just felt this person come in. Um, this is, do you have a grandmother who speaks Yiddish and she's in spirit? And they were like, yes. I said, I don't know Yiddish, but I know it is Yiddish, and she's speaking in Yiddish. And then I started giving like, okay, I'm feeling she's from this area of Europe, in Eastern Europe, and I'm just giving all this information, and then I would hear this message to give to her granddaughter.
Hmm.
And so
Nice.
things like that would happen. And it would be funny because it would happen at the bar. And I think
Not
it
even in
happened a
church.
couple of times. I know, right? But it would happen a couple of times. So I was always interested in watching paranormal shows. I watch everything there is on TV, and I remember during the pandemic, I'm at home, and I'm watching this one favorite show I like of these two mediums from England, and they're going into this house, and they're, giving this reading and all this stuff and doing a cleansing. And by this time, I understand when the Spirit is speaking to me. And I had always felt that there was something more for me to do versus just being a minister. And I heard so clearly, it's like, this is your work.
Hmm.
And I said, what? like, this is your work. You're a psychic medium. And I was just, for me at that moment, it was like this aha moment, like, ah, like everything that I thought about was, what was I supposed to do with my life? It was answered at that moment. I get it now. I knew that there was something more. So I said, well, how do I go about this? And Spirit said, you're to take classes and hone your gift and understand the technique. So that's what I did during the pandemic. I started out taking online classes, doing online circles, um, meeting, uh, getting the book by Reynolds about evidential mediumship, and joining her classes, and just really immersing myself into the work and understanding it. And it was, and it has been just rewarding to me, because I look at it as God's work. This is God's work, helping people, right?
That is what I said. I just said that. I just said that. I said, I said I had people when I first started doing this because my background and, that religion and I call it the cult background.
Yes.
People said, "Oh, you're doing the devil's work." And that bothered me at first, like it really bothered me and it hurt my damn feelings so bad.
Yeah.
Then I said, you know what? One day I was sitting and I wasn't really even in meditation. I was just like, you know how you just sit down?
Hmm.
And I was just sitting and all of a sudden I heard, "You're doing God's work."
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, because why? Because God is what? Love, right?
Absolutely.
Aren't we bringing comfort and, edification and all of these things?
Absolutely. And also, if I can do reference to the Bible,
Yes,
they accused Jesus of
yes,
working with the devil.
yes.
And the first thing he said to them was, a house divided cannot stand, you know? And
Mm.
it's like, why would Satan be working against himself? That makes no sense. And I always like to bring up scripture to support what we do.
Yes,
A lot of people bring up scripture to defame and to squash what we do and call
no,
it evil. But no, let me point out some things,
yes.
because the Bible says clearly that the gifts are without repentance.
That one.
That one.
I tell people that I'm like, so in the church, you called
Yeah.
me a prophetess,
Yes.
but because I'm operating outside of your church, I'm the devil.
Now you're witch.
Yeah, I'm a witch, yes.
Now you're
I
practicing
was like,
dark.
oh, is that what that is? Because y'all can use and exploit my gift?
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's it. And also, I was ordained as a prophetess as well. So it really is. I point out so many instances in the Bible that the gifts being used. It's because there's this whole thing of, the only people that can use these gifts are the ones that are in the church, and that was only during the time of the apostles. And it's like, no, I think I recall in the scripture that Jesus said, greater things shall you do.
That's what he said. And the thing is, too, is Jesus didn't come for them anyway.
No,
He came to set their asses free.
yeah,
But they was too busy condemning him, and that's the thing. It's like, no, Jesus wanted to deal with the people out here in the street.
yes,
He wanted to show love,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is what God is anyway, right? It's like,
exactly.
yeah, but no, I was like, I never forget that little poem thing or whatever that the guy was talking about how he wanted to go in this church. He was a black guy. Wanted to go
Hmm.
in this church. And so he was sitting up top. I think he used to clean it or something. He was sitting up in the top. he said, and he was thinking, I would love to be able to come to this church. And Jesus was sitting next to him and said, yeah, they won't let me in either.
I love that. Ah,
So perfect. This is so real. It's like
I love it.
some of them wouldn't know Jesus if he walked in the door.
Well, they wouldn't. Um, it's, so much about religion and the control, you
Yes,
know.
the
Um,
manipulation and the brainwashing.
exactly. And just the ignorance. I've been listening to this podcast about the Salem witch trials.
Oh, what's the name of it?
Um, the Salem witch trials.
Okay, because I like that kind of stuff. I was
Oh my
watching
God,
a movie about it recently.
it's so fascinating because this gentleman I forget how many episodes there are. It's quite a few, and and he continues to update them. But it was about the Puritans, not the Pilgrims, but the Puritans
Huh?
who were so afraid of the devil
Yeah,
that they created what they feared the most. And it was the fear created the whole thing of accusing people who had nothing to do with witchcraft.
yeah.
But it was the fear and the hysteria of these three young girls. And everyone's so afraid about the evil that's lurking that they created the evil themselves by killing these innocent people.
Well, it's white woman fragility,
Yeah,
and that
yeah,
caused so much destruction and waste for that.
absolutely. Absolutely.
It's like you got that, people being afraid of people because of their gifts and what they can do, and then you want to throw off on them and kill them, all that. And then you got, them demonizing the plant.
Yeah,
Because in what it was it 1938, somebody said that the Mexicans were doing it, and so they were defiling white women. And so I was like, it's always about the fragility of white
yeah,
women.
absolutely.
We can move past that.
Yeah,
That would be
absolutely.
amazing.
Um, for me, the thing is, in as far as spirituality, um, I started learning more about African-based religions as well. And I I was taking dance classes here, so I was studying Afro-Brazilian and Afro-Cuban and
Ooh,
I was doing all this stuff, and I was
nice.
dancing in dance companies and everything, but I was understanding about the Yoruba religion of, the beliefs in the Orishas. And so I had the privilege and this is also was the catalyst for me, my gifts kind of kicking in and my minister saying it's time. I had the privilege of going to Cuba,
Dude,
and
that's on my list. I'm
oh, you
so
should
ready to
go.
go.
You should so go to
It's
Cuba.
on my list. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I'm like, I want
Well,
to go. I want to taste the food. Oh,
oh my gosh, the food was amazing. I went 2 years in a row, but
yes.
I tell you, I'd always known about the Orishas through dance. Nothing serious. The dancing was not because I was learning the popular dances as well and whatever, but the folkloric dances of both Brazil and Cuba. But when I was there and I was with a group of people the first year, I saw some things at the ceremonies
Mm-hmm.
that absolutely shifted everything for me. And I just thought, oh my God.
Hmm.
I saw things that while they were at the ceremony that was just phenomenal. And
Did you do the plant or no?
no,
Wow.
no, Yoruba is not about that, and so or Lukumi or Palo Santo, what it is, we were seeing there was a kind of a celebration or honoring of the sea.
Gotcha.
And so they had, all these different groups at the beach, and they were honoring Yemanja, or they're honoring, other names for her, and in other, base African-based faith religions and Afrokete and all this stuff. So it's like, okay, so their belief in, the animal sacrifices. So, you're seeing this happening. You have a goat and you have a rooster, and it's about, the blood. So the one thing that really I was just amazed, and I didn't feel anything evil about it. It was just
Yeah.
amazing. And I remember that the priest, well, they were all singing, everybody was, all around, they were singing, and he had this he was blessing people and stuff, and everything, not putting blood on them, but they had sacrificed a rooster. They put the blood in a bowl, and then they had a crucifix of Jesus on the cross. And then they had all the stuff that represented Yemaja and, Yemaya, and it's called by two different names, depending
I
if you're
know I
Brazilian
work with
or Cuban.
her. She was just calling her
Right.
today.
Right, right. Depends if you're Brazilian or if you're Cuban, and even if you are Yoruba from Nigeria. So yeah, so he threw the blood just like randomly, just threw it on the cross, threw it on the whole altar that they had set up. And I was with a friend of mine who I was sharing a room with, and they're still singing, and they're playing the drums and everything. And she tapped me on the shoulder. She said, "Jeane, look at the cross." And I said, "What?" She said, "The blood did not hit anywhere on the body of the cross, only on the hands and the feet where the nails were." It's like, get out of here.
So wait. So they had Jesus on the cross?
Yeah. Yeah. It was, little thing they had
Mhm.
the cross, but they had it propped up there on the altar. And so when they threw it, the blood hit nowhere on the body of it. It's like, you throw blood, it goes everywhere. It only hit
Yeah.
the nails and the hands and the feet. And I looked at it, I was like, good God. And another thing that happened was like we went to another part of the beach, and I'm standing there, and they're singing again to Yemaya, and it was like we were so far up from the shore though, and the waves just came in, like just rushed in. It just like hit me on the back of my legs and then went out. And we were standing there for 20 minutes and it never came back. And then I felt this heat in the back of my calf. I was like, what is this? But it really, it had me going away because it was everything that I thought. It just it rocked my world, I should just say. It just rocked my world. And I wanted to get answers because I felt that the energies that was at play here and was going on, and I saw another person, a woman getting what they call mounted. Some people would say possessed, but it's really mounted. And she was just like all dancing like yeah, my yeah, and all this, and everybody's circling around her. And so I had to
Like
ask.
church.
It was like church. People
So
could
was
got
somebody
up and
like
start.
shouting and they around them,
Yeah,
in the ring?
yeah, yeah. So I had to get answers when I got back to the States, and I just said, this has rocked my world. I just want to understand, because it wasn't to say that any of this stuff was evil,
Right.
but it was one of those things like, yeah, I'm learning the dances and stuff, but I don't need to get that deep in it.
Yeah.
But it was something much more extraordinary. And I was like, what came to me, and I was talking to my pastor about this, who's incredibly worldly man. He said,
You are so blessed.
"Ah, you have to meet him. I'm going to introduce you. You have to meet him. He's one of the people I should put on your show." Um,
Yes.
yes. So he just said, you know, none of this is goes against who God is. And it basically told me, and I'm just kind of paraphrasing it, it's like we put God in such a box. But it really made me see, and it took me a little time to like really realize and incorporate all that I had seen, all that I had learned in the church, and just like, no, this is all God. This is all God. The Orishas are just aspects of God working through nature. It's no different than in Hinduism, where you're seeing the aspects of God as an elephant, as Ganesh, as, all this is all one. It's all what's the word I'm looking for?
Mana.
All one God. Yeah, monotheistic, it's just one God.
Yes.
And
It's
it
so amazing that you say that because I've been actually studying this for a while now. This has been
yeah.
since before the beginning of the year. I've been studying that, and I was already attracted to like Aaron Abkey with the Law of One.
Hmm.
I was like, wow, like I dove in and I binged that and stuff, and I was trying to look at the Course in Miracles, but I got to find somebody that's more interesting because some of those ones are so boring.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I said,
yeah,
I don't want to do that. But
yeah.
yeah, just understanding and knowing that we are all one
We're
and
all
that
one.
we're all source.
Absolutely. We're all an expression
Yes.
of that which is great source, that which is divine, that which is what we call God, Goddess, whatever you want to call it. It's just we are all all the expressions of that.
Yes.
And my understanding, as when I got back, I started uh got with a friend of mine who was telling me about an Ile, which is Yoruba house, and that met, I think, they were meeting like every other Sunday, and it's run by a Babalao, a black gentleman. His name is Awo Fashigun, and he is a priest in the Yoruba religion, straight out of Nigeria. Like, this was the motherland right here.
Yes.
And so I started attending the services, and understanding more about the Orishas, understanding more about the system of Yoruba, because it's a system,
Yes.
and it's fascinating, and you never stop learning about it. So, I took that, what I was learning, and I learned more about the Orishas, and I would go and get, a reading from him, divination with the cowrie shows on my birthday once a year, and
Nice.
hearing all these things, and knowing, and really what really helped, especially the work that I'm doing now, is truly understanding the importance of the ancestors. The ancestors, so important. And it's about giving honor to them on a daily basis and remembering them. So as I'm doing my readings, I realize it's like and I tell my clients, it's like, your ancestors, they're so important. And it's about taking the time to recognize that they are around you all the time,
Yes.
all the time. And so when you get ready to do a reading, especially if you get ready to do a reading, they all congregate. and everybody wants to jump in and say something. It's a whole family reunion that's taking place. And it goes way, 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 way back. But you got the one person who's going to push through and speak because this is the person that you need to hear from right now.
It is always my grandmother or my grandfather.
Really?
For me, yes, always. Like almost every circle that I've been in, they're like, okay, I have a gentleman here, it's like fatherly type. And I was like, yeah, that's my grandfather. And they're like, is your father in spirit? I was like, no, I got two and then both of them are still alive.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I said, no, that is my grandfather. And yeah, he was like my father.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
know it. Like I'm like, if anybody else, nobody else shows up, they always show up.
My mother usually shows up a lot. I can always feel her come in. My dad came in, actually I have two fathers in spirit, one my birth father and one that raised me and adopted me.
You got the same as me, but they
Oh, really?
still
Okay.
alive. Yeah, they are still
Yeah.
alive.
Yeah. So, my mother comes in quite a bit and, it's my grandparents will come in sometimes too, but my mom, she's quite prominent when she comes
Wait,
in.
I know I'm laughing. I said, one girl told me one time, said, there's a woman here, and she was pretty forceful, pretty pushy. She was like trying to get to the front of the line and all that stuff. And I said, yeah. Then she said, the perfect thing she goes, she's got a big energy, but she's tiny. I said, yeah, that's my grandma. I
Yep,
said, yep. I said, those people don't play about their Tammy.
yep,
They
that's wonderful.
raised me so.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So tell me, what has changed in your life since you embraced doing this work?
Oh, I would say such a deeper understanding about who I am and why I'm here
Mm,
and and understanding like especially when I go into my meditations and I come and I've been shown amazing realms of the spirit world and understanding, which I'm always told by my spirit guides, it's like, well, you came here to to do the work. You came here for a mission. And that definitely has, I remind myself that when things look kind of wonky on the outside, and it's like, no, remember, you came here to finish to do this mission. Um, I think that for me, other things that have changed has been just learning about faith,
yes.
really having faith.
Yes.
And even just recently, learning um, about being mindful and just in the present, being in the present. Now I wake up in the morning because I do numerology as well.
Oh, okay. I love that. I love
Do
that.
you?
My life
Okay.
path is 9.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful. Um, this year for me is a 9.
Okay, okay.
And and so it was about okay being the completion, the growth, but also being internally growing within and stuff. And so the one thing I had said is being mindful, being in the present. I wake up in the morning, I just like look around where I am and see where I am, just like, thank you. And just like, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, and I'm looking everything, good morning, and being there and staying there. And on this path too is also as psychic medium is the expansion of my gifts as well and the things that I'm doing like numerology. I've always been interested in that and I try to tie that in with, psychic readings. Um,
That's amazing. I think that's phenomenal
yeah, yeah, I just been
because it
fascinated.
does kind of, it's all connected.
It is all connected.
And I
It
think
very
that
much is.
it would help people to illuminate, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
to,
and to understand,
yeah.
why they're here.
It's like if people combined astrology and what's that other stuff, human design. I think
Yeah, I
any of those things help you to open up your mind and numerology. I interviewed a numerologist on here and twice, and he was amazing. He looked like
mm-hmm.
us. He was amazing. Amazing. What was his name? Oh my goodness.
An older
Dr.
gentleman.
Craig. Yeah, older gentleman. His name was Dr. Craig.
Okay.
Can't think of his last name, but it's on my page. I did two shows with him.
Oh wow.
Interviewed him and then he reached out and asked me if he could come back. I said, of course. But yeah,
Well,
it was amazing just the stuff because I didn't realize it was that deep.
it's so deep. It surprises me when I do people's charts. Like I, do a couple of friends' chart, and then it's like, okay, call me up, let's talk about it, and then we explain what this means, and they're just like, this is you hit right on the nail. This is crazy. This is me. This is what's happening. I'm like, yeah,
He
it's
did.
nutty.
Girl, during the show, he basically, read me. And it was just phenomenal. He was like, "You're a nine." He was like, he said, and yeah, he said, "You've got that humanitarian thing." He said, "So you gotta be careful." He said, "Because, you would just give shit away." Like, all the time. And I was like, "Ooh, boy, he got me down."
Wow, wow.
And
Um,
it was powerful. It was really powerful the way he, let things out. And he was like, "And you're an idea factory." He was like, "You just get ideas and ideas." And he said, "People call them downloads. You just get them. They just come to you and you get them." Like, he was like, "But you're a visionary." He's like, "You're not the person to carry all that shit out."
yeah, yeah.
He's like, because I said something about retreats and I said, "Yeah, I'm not the person to plan retreats. I will help in the planning process." I said, "Things like that, I'll give you the ideas that come to me." I said, "But I'm not that person." I said, "But I
Mm,
will participate.
yeah.
I'll come and I'll do the healing work and all that stuff." I said, "But I'm not that person."
Well, I had my human design chart done, and it definitely came out as I'm a um, manifester, generator.
Manifesting generator.
Yes, manifesting generator.
You got a lot of
That's
energy.
yes.
Yeah.
Um, but the other thing too is, like I said about expanding my gifts, I had the also learning more about, uh, well, I ended up doing psychic uh, investigation work.
How was that?
It's incredible. It started with working with Kay Reynolds. She invited me to start doing this podcast, and we have this podcast called Looking for the Lost.
Nice.
Yeah, and we started it back in February 2020, 2022. And it was three of us working on cold cases. So it was like these cold cases like 50, 40 years old.
Wow. Okay.
And so we, working on these cases on the podcast and stuff, and moving into like Jack the Ripper, and all these murder
Like that.
cases. So yeah, so we did that. I didn't think that was something I was going to do. It never crossed my mind, but Kay was like, "No, no, you should work on this case." I'm like, "All right." And then it was like all this stuff was just coming to me about, okay, location. Here's what this guy looked like, da da da. So it's the psychic investigation work, and presently now I work with a group of other psychic mediums who are we have a circle and we work on current cases. So that's been rewarding.
That is very
And
interesting.
Yeah, it is. And the thing about it is that, you can use all the tools. You can use the tools of the pendulum. You can use the tools of mapping. You can use the tools of psychometry, all this stuff. So I'm learning
Jeane, please.
yeah, all of the psychometry, the, spirit art, the everything. And so I've just been open to allow this stuff, to just flow through, and I want to learn more about it.
Yes.
And then I got into animal communication. I didn't know I could do that.
Because the girl I just interviewed before you was
Uh-huh.
also an animal communicator and a psychic medium. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I did one circle, and and I said, okay, let me just practice with my friends' pets. And sure enough, I'm getting all this information from their cats and dogs and birds and turtles and all that stuff. And it's just like, okay, that's
All
something more
right,
I can.
All right, Dr. Look, all right, Mrs.
Dr.
Little.
Doolittle. Yeah, I could talk to the animals. So they
Well, the
talk
thing
to me.
is, what
Yeah,
she said, which was amazing, was she said, they have things to say.
they do.
She said, and what did she say? She said they're an underserved population.
They really are.
And I was like, wow, because it was funny because she and we were talking because I said, you know what's wild? I said, when I met you, I said I had started a animal Reiki class.
Really.
Yeah, now I don't have any animals. Okay, I'm about
Uh-huh.
to buy one of those robot dogs.
Okay.
'Cause they cute, but they don't need to be fed, and I don't have to worry about nobody watching them when I go traveling because I like to travel.
Oh, yeah.
But they're cute as they can be, and they act like a real dog, but they don't have to pee and shit and eat. So
Right. Right.
and go to the vet. Okay.
Very easy.
Yeah. But yeah, I was funny because I was like, I'm finishing this animal Reiki class that I started, I don't know, last year, maybe a year before. But I was like, I just had like um a push to finish it.
Yeah.
And it was just funny because when she was telling me, I was like, huh, So how did you discover that you had that gift?
I can't even remember, to tell you the truth. I don't even remember. I just always been interested because I grew up with animals.
Oh, yeah.
I had dogs, I had cats, we had a hamster or gerbil or whatever it was my brother had. We had fish, and I had such a closeness with my pets. And my last pet was a cat, and she and I were like really close. And so I don't know what it was. I said, let me just see what this is about. And I got in the circle with other psychic mediums, and so, we did some exercises, and I was like, okay. And it just became one of those things that, okay, I can do this because they have, animals have their own intelligence and they have their own spirits. And so it's like they're, it's getting into their mind. And usually when I do a reading for an animal, um, it's basically, I let them tell me, show me who you are, show me, I get evidence first. I don't necessarily have to see the animal. So
Oh,
all I need is a
powerful.
name. Yeah, I just need a name. And if you want to show me a picture of it, you can. The animal doesn't have to be present.
Okay.
So, so I'll go by that, and then it's like, okay, talk to me. And they'll start showing me their favorite thing they like to do, what they like to eat. And I ask them questions. It's like, well, how do you feel about your mommy? How do you feel about your daddy? And they'll start telling me all this information, like, yeah, I like it when they do this, or I don't like it when they do that. and they'll tell me if they like the neighbor or not, all this stuff. But then I ask like really important questions like, okay, how do you like your food? Is there anything that you don't like about your food? And they'll tell me what they like, what they don't like. And also I'll start to pick up areas of the body where I think they're having issues. And they'll let me feel that. They'll show it to me and let me feel. It's like, oh, for some reason I'm feeling something in my right shoulder with the
So
dog.
medical intuition for pets.
Yeah.
And awesome. Oh my God, that is such a powerful gift.
It's I'm just grateful of things that are just opening up and even opening up to trans.
Yes, yeah, okay. So when I started really kind of looking at that and to see what it actually was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I started really kind of diving in and, because I'm at heart, I'm a researcher. Before long COVID, I was a really big researcher. Now I'm healing from that, so I'm able to retain more information because I had a problem. Like it was a
Okay.
real struggle for the last about 2.5 years.
Oh, bless you.
So I know, I don't even know how I finished my master's coursework because it was a struggle. And even down to like, like sometime when I do videos, I never had to ever have paper when I did my videos. I never did notes. I always just did them. But, I had to kind of do some pivoting and stuff like that,
Yeah.
but it's all good. Like I had a lady one time, she was one of my mentors. She would say, it's all for purpose. And I said, yeah, it's all for purpose. And once I relaxed about it, because I was really kind of edgy. I was really edgy about it because I'm really smart. And I was like, I feel really dumb. Like, yeah, like I'm, not to, brag or anything, but I'm one of those people with a really high IQ. So I'm really
Yeah.
smart. And so I was like, what is going on here? I feel like I have early dementia. I can't think, I can't remember nothing, I can't, retain information, something is not right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so that's to me, that's like so amazing, that you can connect with our pets like that,
Oh yeah.
you know?
I I enjoy doing it. I enjoy doing it. And the funny thing is if I do a reading for a pet and I've never met the pet, um, and say I meet the pet for the first time, they like gravitate to me because they know me. It's like we've met before and they'll just kind of gravitate to me and it's like, okay, okay. You know, we know each other then through telepathy.
So do you find their energy easier?
Um,
Because
I
somebody
don't
I
feel there's
talked
a
to said that they thought that the animal's energy was easier to connect to, but I don't know. What do you
I
think?
don't think so, no. I don't feel it is. I think that um energy is energy
Yeah.
and it's really removing the idea that, oh, they think just like us. And it's like they do because they have their own intelligence, but it's like, you know, I'm going to treat you like I treat anybody else I'm doing work on.
Yeah, all of a sudden Kendrick Lamar just popped in my head. They not like us, yeah.
They not like us. They not like us. It's easy to jump into that, man.
Like, ooh.
But with trans, if I could jump into that,
Yeah,
I was in England this last summer. I was at the Arthur Findlay College. I decided to take class.
yes.
Oh, Arthur Findlay. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I heard
Um,
a lot of different things. That's why I wanted to know how you felt about it.
it was to me, it was incredible. I went there I went there to study for a week paranormal investigation and mediumship.
Yes.
Okay. And we had great experiences. We went to a castle, we went to a church, we even did investigation in the college itself. There's activity there.
I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, there is. Um, and we learned how to work all the tools and things like that. But also part of the time that we were there, we learned about trance. And this is another thing that I was like, oh, that's nice, but that's not me. You know, it's like, no, I'm not, no,
How you do it? You do like the kids. Cool.
cool. You can do that, cool.
Good for you.
But I ended up participating because that was part of the course. And it's like, okay. But there was such an explanation about it that the fear was gone.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the reason why even doing the paranormal investigation and doing trance was I'm here to remove my fear and prejudice about these things.
See, I believe for myself, I believe that I've done trance before.
You probably have.
I think I've done it a few times. And the crazy thing is, I think I did it in prayer in the church.
Oh yeah, I know I have.
And I didn't realize until I started like reading about it and studying it and just trying to understand a little bit. I think I listened to a couple of videos and I was like, wait, what are they talking about? I was like, I think I've done that.
Yep,
And I was like, wow, that is so crazy. But I
it
think
is.
when we start to take God out of the box,
Yeah, absolutely.
then to be open to these things that, we probably have experienced but just don't realize.
Yeah, and it is kind of that way for me too when I also in the church that I felt, a spirit is taken over, the spirit or a spirit is taken over and um and so, even for me and I had someone else too, when they go into speaking in tongues that it's not like what normally I would hear other people trying to do in the church, like just being funny, but shakalaka, boom, boom, boom.
Coming on a Honda.
Hana, yeah, hana, hana. So it would be,
No.
it would, boom, shakalaka, like, it would be, um, but it would be this language that
Beautiful.
actually had a structure,
Yeah.
and I could tell it had a structure. I don't know what I was saying, but I knew that something is speaking through me.
Yeah.
And as I'm praying for this person,
Yeah. I
you
can
know,
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah. I had a girl
So,
who told me that she listened to, I think I did like a light language transmission or something like that. And she listened to
yeah,
it and said, what language is that? And I was like, yeah, I don't know.
I don't
But
know.
she's like, I think it's whatever with some language. She was like, I think it's this language. And I think you were saying this. And I said, well, I can tell you what I was saying. I said, but I don't know the language.
Yeah,
I said, but
exactly.
I've been doing that since I was 5.
Yeah, I've been doing it since I don't know back in the 90s, but it is. It's just something that comes through when I'm in deep prayer, when I'm in deeply entrenched in, if we're praying for someone and I just feel that spirit come through, I feel that language come through and I can't hold it back.
No.
So, but the thing about being at the college was we did these exercises and it was the explanation of scientifically what happens to your body
Nice.
and learning about being in beta state, alpha state, you
Yeah.
know, gamma, you know, theta, delta. And so we did these exercises and we were put off in groups and it was about allowing, you know, being in a deep meditation and allowing a spirit to come and speak to someone who's in the group.
Yeah.
And so a couple of these things occurred, and it happened, and was like, wow, this is deep. This is deep. So I had the privilege, as soon as I got back from Arthur Finley, I was invited to a seance. I had never been to a seance
Gonna
before.
ask how was that? I've never even been to one. I just seen them on TV. I've never been.
I know, I know. And I was like, a seance. And it was being done by these two mediums who actually, they do physical mediumship.
What is
And what is that? Okay. So in physical mediumship, they're able to manifest something, and it materializes. That things materialize through them.
that's real?
So it's wild.
Oh,
It's really wild. And the ectoplasm, which can happen when a medium is in trance. And the ectoplasm, is that smoke, that thick white stuff that you start to see.
yeah, yeah.
And so that's part of physical mediumship.
Oh,
And so this was this was a friend of mine who, she's also a minister at another church, and she's with the spiritual church, spiritual, not spiritualist, but spiritual church.
oh, there's a
With
difference.
there's a difference because you have the spiritualists, you know, and then you have the spiritual church, which was predominantly Black people,
Oh, I didn't.
and it's a combination of Pentecostal and Catholicism.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
I,
you have this.
look, I'm wrapping my brain.
I
I'm trying
know.
to figure out
I mean,
the
I
shout
got into.
and they don't sing.
Yeah, it's because they have the whole structure of, you have the ministers, bishops, cardinals, you have, I mean, it goes on and on, just like the Catholic Church, almost like the Church of
Episcopal.
God in Christ, even,
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
because the whole structure. And so, but they do certain rituals that are very Catholic, but there's also this element of African based religion mixed in. And then you tie that all in with the Pentecostal aspect of it, where you've got, the Holy Ghost, and people are getting us speaking in tongues, and then there's given prophecy is
Got
given, and
fivefold ministry gifts and blah, blah, blah.
all yeah, all of it. And they honor the Mother Mary, and they're doing all these things. I mean, it's just in the saints. So you've got all this stuff. It's absolutely fascinating. And I was
I was
introduced
gonna
to
say
it.
it sounds like a lot.
It's a lot. Um, but yeah, so the all this is taking place in the spiritual churches here in California, but they're also in various areas of the country. So there's a whole united congregation of spiritual churches. Anyway, she's a pastor of this church, and she's hosting the physical mediumship seance at the church. And she went to she also studied psychic mediumship, and she went to Arthur Finley as well. But anyway, these two psychic mediums, uh, Michael and Julie, they're two white people. They're not married, but they had it set up where they were in these cabinets, which we learned about at Arthur Finley. And the cabinets, actually, theirs was made of PCB piping and curtains. And in these cabinets, this is where they contain the energy of the spirit in here. So they contain this energy of the spirit in there. And so in this case, that with the seance, we're not all sitting at a table, with the crystal ball in the middle and all that stuff.
So
It's
it's
not
not
like,
like TV.
no, it's not like TV at all. This is so different. But the thing is, they're in these cabinets, they're locked down, they're tied down with Ziplocs, you know, and they're gagged, or they have, what do you call them?
Yes.
Bandanas tied around their mouth, or, everything's just, so they're not moving at all. And I was one of the persons that used zip ties. That's what I meant to say. Zip ties to hold one of the mediums down. And so they had explained to us, well, this energy who comes through Michael, uh, she is um, Mistress Nada, Master, Ascended Master Mistress Nada.
Mm-hmm.
And she's the one that comes through Michael and speaks.
Mm.
And Julie is able to, uh, angels work through her. So she's able to bring these angels that come through. Well, let me tell you, I saw, first of all, the thing is how we started off is we sing all these high vibrational songs, because this is what I understand about spirit, especially if I'm doing like in-person group gallery readings. It's like they like high vibration, so they like music. So
Yes.
we were singing all these songs. We were singing songs from the Beatles, the Monkees, um, you know, Judy Garland, all this stuff, right, to bring in the spirit. But the room is completely black,
Okay.
right? And so this was my first time ever seeing physical mediumship. We heard the voice. We saw things just fly up in the air out of nowhere, like ping pong balls, and we heard a trumpet sounding, um, and all of a sudden this woman's voice comes through, and she starts talking to us. And this was on the side of where Michael was. It did not sound like it came from him. First of all, he had swallowed, not swallowed, but he was holding water in his mouth. Remember, it gave him a sip of water to hold in his mouth during the whole entire time. But it was something, and I had my own experience with it. But I saw and I felt oil in a container being manifested. I don't know, and they said this came from Mother Mary.
Okay.
And there was this oil that smelled like roses. I was holding the container, and out of nowhere, it was just, she said, dip your hand in the container. And I felt it, and it was oil. And I felt someone reaching out in one of the cabinets, reached out and touched my shoulder and just rubbed their hand all the way down. And it was when I was holding the container. And then once they had finished, I dipped my hand in it, and there was this oil. But we saw uh, gems being manifested, and we're talking like beautiful gems. And they all of a sudden they were all on the floor. And it was just the most amazing thing
Out of
whatsoever.
nowhere.
Out of nowhere,
Jesus.
out of nowhere.
I need to see that.
And we were each called up once the mediums came into and more present. We were each called up, and we were each given these certain gems. I got about four of them, and it was like uh, an a blue topaz, an emerald, a citron, and they're real. They were real because they had said the angels, the spirit wants to come and do what they call apportations. Apportation means to manifest something out of nowhere, or to remove something out of nowhere.
Mm.
And so I still have mine. And so when they started talking to me about the gems that they were giving me, they were saying, this is from this master. This is from Mother Mary. This is from Mistress Kuan Yin. This is from this person, da da da. And it all had to do with what it meant for me. And everybody got a chance to do that. It was the most unbelievable thing I'd ever seen in my life.
And that was a seance.
And what's that?
I said, and that was a seance.
That was the seance.
So
And the
we're nothing
thing,
but bringing in the spirits.
yeah, it was just bringing in just that. But the thing was like, it wasn't about bringing in individual spirits for everybody. It
Right.
was about this one person who was coming through and talking to us and answering our questions. We asked questions, and she was answering our questions. And so the one thing that was wonderful that one of the persons had said was, these apportations that took place that you witnessed today, the oil and the stones that you saw that all of a sudden just were on the floor once the lights came up, said the apportations is exactly what Jesus did with the water and the wine.
Yes, Lord. Mhm. Yes. Yes.
See,
Well, yeah. Well, he was the master.
he was the master. He was the master, ascended master.
Yeah. Amazing. Oh, that is so amazing.
And the thing about it, oh, it's Lady Nada. Nada is, I had to look, who is Lady Nada? Who is that? Oh, God, what does that say? That's it. Yes, Lady Nada.
I was
Yes,
looking through the cards as you was talking. I said, I know I've seen Lady Nada because I think I drew her a few times.
yes,
We took
yes.
Acceptance and Divine Love,
Divine love.
give and
I
receive
had to look up and
balance.
who is Lady Nada? And it said that they believed that she was Mary Magdalene.
I could see that.
Hmm.
I could see that because I love her. I work with her in Jesus.
Isn't that wonderful? Yes.
I think it's just the most phenomenal, and
It,
they
it,
came to me together, like I always had a thing for Jesus. And I know it's because I spent some time with him,
yep.
and I was like, oh, man, because he's like so strong. It's amazing. I did a theta healing class,
Oh,
and
yeah.
the thing that she said was so funny. She said she was doing my reading and she looked at me, she said, "Oh my God." I said, "What?" She said, "I don't think I've ever seen anybody with that connection to Jesus like you do." And I was like, wow. She said, "Do you know you have this connection?" I was like, "Yes, I do."
Amazing. Beautiful.
Oh boy, I tell you, this has been amazing, amazing, amazing. We're gonna land this plane though.
Okay. Okay. We went over. I'm probably talking and talking.
Good. It's all good. It's good. This is what we do.
Okay.
I have one question that I ask everyone. If there was anything in the world that you could change, what would that be and why?
One thing I would change is people having more empathy and compassion.
Love it.
If you have that, then that will shift everything.
Yes.
That's the one thing that's truly, truly missing is compassion and empathy. Mhm.
That's amazing. Never gotten that answer.
Really?
No. I've only gotten two answers twice in the whole, probably, I don't know, 100, 200 shows I've done. Nobody
It
is.
would change everything.
Yeah, I believe that because it would bring us closer to the one,
Yeah.
because the thing is we are so um polarized and so divided and in so many ways. You know what I mean? We can count the ways.
Yeah.
I think that if we would tap into our empathy and if we would also encourage it, like with
Yes.
with our children,
Yeah.
even in the well, I was gonna say even in the schools, but they have their own agenda.
Right.
I think if we would
Right.
just encourage that, especially like parents could start there,
Yeah.
keeping that as the children grow and not, beating it out of them.
Yeah. It's one of those things, you can't teach what you don't know.
This is true. This is true.
And so if we could teach our children to have more compassion and empathy, I do believe very much that there's a shift that's taking place, and it seems really harsh right now. But
Yes.
I remember speaking to my spirit guides and speaking to spirit, and they were saying these things that are happening now, they have to happen this way in order for the shift to truly take place.
Agree. I got the same message.
Okay.
And people, I was scared to even speak it out. For a long time. I wouldn't even speak on it. I was like, no, 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 no.
Hmm.
But I got tired of all the doom and gloom and
Yeah.
everybody, being so shit depressed and all this other kind of stuff. And I'm like, do you understand? This is a fluid world. Shit is changing all the time.
All the time.
And the other thing is too is, this is not the time for that. This is the time to take your position on the wall. This is
Hmm.
not, give up and roll over and die and all this other kind of shit.
Right.
And one thing I
Right.
said was for us, we gonna be all right because we always have. I said all the destruction and the death and the colonization still couldn't take us out.
No.
So none of this shit will either. I
Well,
I had a friend, she was like, well, you don't care. I was like, it's not that I don't care. I said, but it's that I'm not going to inundate myself with all of the crap that is being said and all
yeah.
of the foolishness that's going on.
Yeah.
I said, because I truly trust spirit, source, God, the universe. I said, and I
Absolutely.
had that word. I got that word like last year about God, it was even before the election I got it. And I was
Hmm.
like, to myself, I did one of these numbers. What you talking about with this? Because everybody was jumping around talking about, this other thing that, we hope would happen and all this stuff. And I just didn't say anything because I had already gotten the word.
You already knew. You already heard.
Yeah.
And not everybody can hear
No,
that message.
no. Well,
Not
I
everybody,
don't want to hear it.
you know, I throw scripture in there again. Those who have ears, let them hear.
Yes, absolutely.
So, you know, not everyone can hear that message, but it's all right. It was for you to know.
It is. I had somebody laughing. I was like, so many of the things, I got messages on and I was like, not telling nobody. I
You
think I
don't need
wrote it
to.
on my phone. Some of them I wrote on my phone, or I wrote myself a thing on the Word document or something. But I was like, let me just not speak this out, because it's not what people want to hear.
Mm-mm.
But the thing is it's okay. And it's funny because even the day after the election, I went on TikTok and I did a live and I just felt called to do it. And I said, you know what? I said, I'm here to pray. I'm not here really even to do readings or anything. I said, I may do a few here and, sprinkle. I said, but I'm not here for that. I said, I am here to pray
Yeah.
because I feel the energy of the people. I said, so If you want to come in, because that's what I'm doing in here. We're praying. I said, and I'm praying
Yeah,
for
that's
each
it.
one. I said, because I can feel it. I said, people are terrorized and they are so afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I can understand that,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I was like, no, no, this is not the time for that. And I was like, okay, so after you get your good cry, and after you scream and yell and punch your pillow and whatever it is, the things that you feel like you need to do,
Mm-hmm.
now it's time to get up.
Exactly. I posted the next day too on Facebook. I just wrote like this whole thing. I got so many responses, but the thing that I said was, I'm going to remain in my humanity, and I'm going to treat people the way that I've always treated them, and that is equally, no matter what is happening around me, no matter what the division is. But
Yes,
it was, it was like all this that I had written out, and I said, I'm going to continue walking in the light.
yes,
I'm going to continue that. And that has been my whole thing. I'm walking in the light during all of
yes.
this, because this is man's reasoning. This is man's foolishness. This isn't the wisdom of God and the spirit world. This isn't their wisdom.
But it's what the people needed,
But it's what the people needed.
because
They brought
when they had something that was good, they didn't like that. And
mm-mm.
we can go back to the Bible with that.
Oh, absolutely.
Remember when the people wanted a king?
That's it.
And God
So
said, I'm gonna give you a king. Might not be the
I
one.
said that just the other day. I just quoted that same scripture the other day to somebody. It's like, God told you you don't trust me, but you want somebody to come in and be a king. Let me tell you what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to let you have one.
Because you know what? Even in the Bible days, they fucked around and found out.
Oh, yeah, they sure did. Just,
When you think about it, it's like now it's like, yeah, y'all, yeah. So I ain't gonna lie, I pop some popcorn and I just eat my popcorn and I sit and watch the movie and I shut off all the, I don't,
all
I'm
the
not gonna do
noise,
all that news and all that foolishness. I'm not doing it. And I
all the
laugh. I
noise.
said every time I open up some of the social, I was like, I did like a whole social media fast for about a week or two. Like I haven't been live anywhere in over a week, and I usually go live. I was going live almost every day somewhere,
Mm, mm-hmm.
YouTube and TikTok, Facebook here and there, but I don't really like Facebook like that. So, but I was like, yeah, I just need to take a break, and I did. Somebody actually reached out to me and was like, "You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." It's like I am
Better
so
than
good.
fine.
This break. I needed this time. I needed to decompress. I said, plus every time I was opening my phone, that orange man's face was popping out. And I was like, I have tried to curate my settings so that I don't get to see that because I
Yeah,
don't need that in my life. And the
yeah.
other thing is too is, and the other part that I don't think people realize is that man got dementia.
He's off.
He got
He's
dementia.
definitely off, but everybody knew already. But those of us who really know, it's like he's mentally ill
Yeah,
in
for
his
sure.
narcissism, because that is an illness, that is a condition, and so and he had to bring in people who were like him, like-minded. You only draw yourself to yourself in
That's
order
right.
to see yourself.
Mhm.
See, he couldn't do all of this if he was working with people who were in opposition, but he was able to bring in other folks. Like attracts like.
Absolutely. And you know what? And that's all okay.
It's fine.
It is all okay. Somebody was arguing with me on Facebook about that one day, and I was like, listen, I am not, I'm not putting my head in the sand and all this other kind of stuff. I said, no, I'm taking my place on the wall. I said, but the other thing is me going back and forth and arguing with people and with you and talking about it and all this stuff, and I don't have a solution. Guess what? No,
Mm-hmm.
not doing that. I said, because
Yeah,
that messes with my energy.
yeah,
I like to stay in a high vibration and that takes me low.
Yes.
So I'm not even going there. I was like, no, I have things that I need to do, for God, for myself. I was like that, I cannot internalize that stuff.
Right.
It's like, it's like, no, I'm gonna let that go.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no. So we're gonna land this plane. I can talk to you all day. Your energy is
I
fabulous.
know. I didn't mean to keep you on for so long,
No, no,
but
no. When
I've
it
had a good time.
I was
I've
gonna
had
say
a
when
good.
it goes like that, I just let it go. When I tell
Okay.
people, I was like, I set it at 30 minutes. Most people are like, oh, I gotta go in 45 minutes. I'll be like, okay, you gotta go. We'll shut it down. But yeah, no, your energy is fabulous. I have enjoyed this, let me say it like Abraham Hicks. I have enjoyed this interaction immensely.
Oh, thank you. Likewise. 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 Thank you. I
Absolutely.
appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you so much.
I enjoy that. These conversations I live for. I mean, I just love it. I'd be like, it's Tuesday. I got some interviews today.
um, oh, can I plug in my website?
I, I was actually getting ready to tell you if you have any last words or if you're doing anything, filling any programs you want to talk about or, any of that kind of stuff. And you can also share the best place for people to connect with you. But all of those things will be in the show notes as well.
Okay, that's fine. It's fine. Yeah, I am. You can always contact me online. Website is lightandsoulspiritual.com.
Nice.
Um, yeah, that's my website there. But I've, yeah, I'm doing a couple of things right now. But yep, that's about it.
I was gonna say nothing ready to be birthed yet.
Yeah, yes, exactly,
I got you.
exactly.
I'm birthing a few things myself.
Yep, exactly. Sitting with spirit to like, okay, what's the next thing I need to do here? So,
And that is always the journey, and I laugh about that because I was like, I got here and so I was doing this thing and then I was like, I don't think that's what I'm really supposed to be doing.
yeah.
I don't really like doing it anyway. So I was like, what am I supposed to be doing, where? And I was like, and I think about it, it's like I got all these things that I can do and all these things that I enjoy doing. And so I was
Mm-hmm.
like, well, what do I need to do and what's going to make me money?
Yeah, that thing. So I'm in consultation right now with spirit. It's like, okay, I got a few things in my mind, what I need to do, what I should do. Um, I especially am, which is so nice to have this conversation with another sister who is, in the spiritual work.
Yeah.
And, we're out there, but we don't know that we're out there
Yes.
a lot of times. Do you know what I'm saying? Um, I know of, the Facebook page that I'm on with mediums of African ancestry. We Dr. Hines, she's fabulous, wonderful lady who hosted this whole, her page. But it's like, um, I want I want people to know, we're out there. This work that we're doing, our ancestors were doing this. And it wasn't until we were colonized and we were told that what we were doing, as far as veneration of our ancestors,
Oh,
you know, and we were always, about one God. It was just like we were told that what we were doing was evil and it was of the devil, and we were beaten
yeah.
in order to stop.
Well, we were brainwashed and
We
manipulated.
were brainwashed, we were beaten, we were sometimes mutilated,
Yeah. Most
our hand cut off for playing the drum because that was our communication. And it's just like all this stuff. It's like, and I know,
was.
yeah, nothing can stop us. And I know us Black folks, we rely on the church. The church has been everything, but it's just like I want y'all to, yeah,
It's like most of us were raised in the church, coming, especially
yeah,
in the South.
yes, absolutely. I was.
And but it's time to grow up now. It's time to recognize, and I always tell people, I said, it's time to recognize the real big God, the
Yeah.
one that can actually do something. Not the one because I used to use this reference. I said, I used to think about this. You go up to the altar at church and you take your big old bag of burdens, like
Mm-hmm.
Santa Claus. You got this big bag of
Mm-hmm.
burdens. And you take this big bag of burdens and you go up to the altar and you get on your knees and you call Jesus, Jesus, I need you. Jesus, I
Yep.
need you.
Yep.
God, where you at?
Yep.
You know, you do these things. And then when you get up, you take that big bag of burdens back with you.
Take it back with you.
I was like, when I got that analogy, it just like came to me and I was like, oh, that is really it. Because even I said to myself, I said, now, I was raised in the church, probably went to church when I was in my mama's womb,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought, but I was an unbelieving believer,
Yeah.
because I
Me
mean,
too.
I believed to a point, but then there was like, okay, so if God is a healer, then why is everybody always sick? And why are we praying for people that ain't never get healed?
Yeah.
So many questions I had even as a child. It's like, this can't be right.
Yeah.
And if it's God is love, then why do we hate black people? These were questions I had as a child. I was like, this don't make no sense.
Yeah, I had questions too. I remember being in Sunday school and I had a question because, the whole thing is, well, you have to be saved in order to go to heaven, and you want to go to hell and everything. And I remember the Sunday school teacher was, emphasizing all that. And I raised my hand and I think I was maybe about 12. And I said, so what happens to all the Jewish people? They believe in God too. He
Look,
looked
what
at
about
me.
the Hindu people?
And he looked at me. It said, because, they're in the Old Testament and God took care of them. Aren't they the chosen people? And he just looked at me and he said, well, God will judge them by their hearts. Oh, okay.
Oh,
Okay, they are saved.
God, look, maybe you weren't a part of what is the 144,000?
Yeah.
I said, all these people in the world, you mean to tell me that God is only going to choose 144,000 to go with him? I mean, what kind of,
Only 144,000. Oh my
I'm
God.
like,
I
what do
think
you have a million people in New York?
I know.
What, a million people in LA?
Yep. 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 That's
But
it.
we'll have to limit ourselves down to 104. What's it going to be like the show Manifest?
Oh man.
Some few things the things, it's like, you're almost like, wow, one day I think I was 17 and I said, you know, I've been to church all these years and there were years where we went to church every fucking day.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I went to church all these years. And so when I got 17, I said, yeah, I'm not going back. I'm done. I said, I'm sure that there's a file somewhere and God can look at that and pull it out and see that on March 12th, 1982, I was at the
Yep.
So I think I've served my time and I'm not gonna do it anymore. I left home, I was like, peace out.
That's all right. You were
But of
meant for
course,
bigger
did I do
things.
that? No. I still went to church and still went and yeah, I was like, because I could hear, my family in my ear. Well,
Oh
you need
yeah.
to go to church, you need to stop backsliding, running with the devil.
Yeah, that sounded like my mom. I was singing in the nightclubs and I was tired. It was like, Saturday morning, and
Oh,
that's, Saturday night all night. And so Sunday I didn't always make it to church, but I was just so tired, get to bed
you
by
was
3 in the morning. And my mom would call me like 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. It's like, you need to go to church. she was so worried about my soul.
Mhm.
She was so worried about my soul.
But that was conditioning.
Yeah, and
Got
I
it.
was just getting really annoyed about it. I think she called me one time. I said, and I was, in my 20s, and I said, "Mom, please stop calling me so early. I've only had about 4 hours of sleep. Don't worry about me going to church." And I don't know what she said after that, but it was, just this whole thing about the church, the church, the church. You got to go to church. You got to church. And I was just
But you know,
like, okay.
so many of the people that go up in there, they so darn evil and
You
hate.
know, and yeah, you have that. And also, this is a whole nother conversation. We'll be on here for another 2 hours if I keep going. I'm gonna be quiet, but so you can, stop this train, as you say. But it's a whole nother conversation we could talk about. Oh man, never mind.
Yeah,
About
so
dependency,
definitely, definitely.
dependency of the church, the
Oh God,
dependence.
yes.
That's a whole nother conversation. So anyway.
Well, if we think about it, it was a staple in our community.
And very important too. And I
Right.
get that.
Mhm.
We needed the church. We needed that. Um, and I say like, the dependency of the church because, you know, it helped in our struggle.
Yeah.
It helped in as a people,
Hmm.
our ancestors and everything. Um, but I say the dependency of the church, which it gets into more of a gender thing. And and I just remember my mom having to, she was going to church like, 3 times a week, just about, she had Sunday
You got
Bible
Sunday
study, all that
service,
stuff,
you got Bible study, and then you got prayer meetings and
prayer meetings,
what there was some other choir practice and
and she would lead them and everything else. And so,
intercessory prayer and all these things. Yes.
yeah, I think that if I start thinking about my mother, who I love very much, I think that it was her escape.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it becomes that for people. It becomes more of an escape than it being something that really is about learning to change their lives
I
in
don't
some
honestly
cases.
think that a lot of people even care about that because I
It's not
think
even about that
like they
mostly.
take their
I'm,
burdens and go in the church and then leave with them.
yeah, I think that and I'll be honest with you, I'm at the point right now that it's hard to hear a lot of sermons for me.
Girl, I'm
I
trying.
can't listen to a lot of sermons.
The only one I listen to sometimes is Joe Osteen because I know it's going to be short.
God bless Josie. We used to go to his father's church. My mother used to take us to Lakewood
Oh wow.
before before they moved into that big
That-
arena. Yeah. And we used to go to the to his father's church. It was way out, kind of like in a almost like a rural area of Houston. And my mother made us go to that church uh, for a while. But my mom was, it was going to that church. It was following Oral Roberts. I think she even went up to Oral Roberts University one for a weekend for some kind of retreat. It was, she was just in the church. And
Oral
but
Roberts. Wow.
right?
My grandmother,
Oral Roberts, she's watching Jimmy Swagger, she's what, the whole gamut,
all
the
of
whole
them.
gamut. And so, she got really into it. But, as I became more and more enlightened and having my own conversations with spirit, and it was just like what I'm hearing a lot of ministers saying is not what you're telling me. And it's not what I now know. because you've shown it to me.
Well,
And
they don't listen.
yeah. And it's like it's hard to hear this. I can't listen to a bunch of ministers. It's nothing, there's nothing that's new
I
that's
actually
being
feel the
revealed.
same way. Like I don't do it. Like if I, you know, I actually discovered Reverend Ike back here a few.
Oh, Reverend Ike. We used to watch that when I was a kid. I'm aging myself, but we used to watch Reverend Ike on TV.
See, my grandmother, they're from the same town.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think they can, because you know how
Hmm.
it is in the small towns.
Yeah,
Everybody is a kid.
yeah.
But he used to, my mother said that he used to come when he would be on his way to Miami to preach and stuff. He
Hmm.
would come and stay with my grandmother,
Oh,
at their house because, back in those days, were no hotels.
yeah.
You had to stay in people's houses.
Right.
My grandma said he would, my mom said he would come and my grandmother would cook for him and stuff like that. And I wondered about it because I remember sometimes she used to watch it, but they demonized him so bad back in those days.
Yeah, yeah. It was,
Watched, but I didn't know the connection until just about last year about 2 years ago when I was talking to my mom about how I had discovered him on YouTube and he was just feeding me,
yeah. He was
because
ahead of his time.
way ahead of his time.
I mean, as a kid, I remember seeing his show, his church service, but none of that fed into me as a kid.
No,
But I remember he had a saying, but I don't remember what the saying was. He would always end
I
it
would say it's
his service, with it.
what I use.
But but I think people are starting to discover him again because he really was about new thought, metaphysics, and it was like, yeah, it makes sense what he's saying. Even the Babalao Awofa Shagun, he even talked about Reverend Ike in one of his services that we went to. He said, yeah, Reverend Ike was he was ahead of his time. I remember as a kid I used to
He
watch
was
him as a
phenomenal.
he was phenomenal. And his family here is still keeping things going. They have a foundation and stuff. So
Yeah,
um
I saw something when I was looking at one of the videos. They had wrote that because somebody was saying how when they were a kid, everybody was demonizing them and all this other kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, when they started listening to him, they were like, he was just trying to get us free.
yeah.
He was trying to get Black people free and paid.
Yes.
And it was so amazing. I was like, you know what? That is so real.
Yeah.
I do. I listen to him like I love that they clip him down in 10 and 15-minute spots. And so sometimes I listen to him in the morning when I get up. That's one of my devotions. I'll be like, okay, who am I going to do devotion with this morning?
Nice.
So I listen to, I'll do his 15-minute sermon or whatever he's doing or whatever. But yeah, it's like so much. I had my husband laughing. I said, would love to go visit a church that had a good praise and worship. Because I would just love to do some praise and worship and then leave. That's what it was like.
Yes.
I said, because
And
I like
quite a few.
some good music, because I was watching the spiritualist church on YouTube one day that's local. And God,
Hmm.
the music, I was like, I don't think I could do that.
No, 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 no. No.
Like, because that's not music. I don't know what that is they're doing.
That's them. That's them.
I
Um,
don't know, but I was like, They all got a
yeah.
red hand up in there.
Yeah, that's their thing. That's the one thing about the spiritual church, they have church,
Yeah,
you know. So
they have church.
they have church. That's it.
Oh, I'll be like, ooh, I was like, if I could just, find someplace that had like a good praise and worship and they let me get a good shout in, I'm ready to go home.
I hear you. I hear you. The closest we got here is West Angeles.
Oh yeah.
West Angeles Church or Fame first AME
Is
church
that,
here, as far as like, huh?
is that Cogent?
Yeah,
I met my husband
coach.
at Cogent Church in Arizona.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
know it was that when I went to visit
yeah.
because I typically don't fool with them because I can't do all the long dresses to your knees and all that stuff because I'm a short girl and I wear my dresses short.
It's kind of, I think well, I know that they've changed a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
They've
they were a
changed
little bit
a
more
lot.
progressive.
A little more progressive. Women are wearing makeup, and the dresses are a little shorter, even pants. They wear them in
I
church
saw
now.
that and I was so excited because I love to wear pants. I'm good with it.
Yeah, yeah, I know
Dresses,
they
dresses are
I
short because I'm short and I got nice legs. So, but yeah. I was like, oh, because my friend had invited me. And I said, okay, I'll go. So I went to church with her and I was like, oh God. And then when I looked at the flyer thing, I was like, oh my God, she did not tell me that this was a Kojak church. And then I said, okay. I said, oh, it's all right. And so I think I went my third time and my husband walked in.
Oh, wow.
And I looked at him and I said, that's a fine man.
How long have you been married?
9 years in June.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so it was just something like we just like he was visiting, I was visiting, and we connected, and and it was one of those times where I knew I was gonna know,
Hmm.
because I wasn't looking. I didn't care at
Yeah.
that point. I had just moved across the country, and I wasn't looking. I was looking to meet me.
Mm,
I was like, I'm
I hear you.
yours. My kids are grown. I just needed to meet me and see who the hell I am. And
Yeah.
I wasn't even nothing. And so when I met him, the Holy Spirit said, that's him. And I told him, you know, and he was like, okay. And yeah, so after that, things were a little crazy because he wasn't looking either and he wasn't ready either. But yeah, it worked out. Like it was definitely what needed to happen, because I didn't know why I was moving across the country. All I know is God said it was time for me to go.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 o'clock in the morning, God said, it's time for you to leave this place.
Wow.
And I said, what you talking about, Willis? This job, this town, spiritual place, mental place, emotional place, physical place. What are you talking about? And
Hmm.
talking first. But yeah, so I did. I think that was November of 2012 and January of 2013, I left.
Wow.
My car, drove to Arizona with $500 and a car note.
Okay.
No job. I was like, what am I gonna do? I don't even know. But I had a place to live. I was like, I got a place to live. I got a car to drive. I'll make it.
Yeah, that's right.
I will find a job, and I'm not worried about that. But yeah, it was something, really a true faith walk. And then, see, I got there January 2013. In August, I met him. And the thing is I had a girlfriend right before I left. I left South Carolina. In December, we went actually to the hospital to pray for one of our coworkers that was,
Hmm.
I think she was in a coma or something, like a diabetic coma or something. And they had kind of left her out because she had some other issues, and so they thought they would, they sedate them.
Hmm.
So we went to pray for her, and we did. And so that night, she said, "You want to get something to eat?" I said, "Girl, I don't really have no money." I said, "But I got some food at the house. You want to come?" So she came over, and I cooked, and we ate, and so she said, she said, "You're gonna meet your husband." She said, "You're gonna meet your husband soon." She said, "It's not gonna be long." And I just looked at her and I said, "I am not trying to meet any man right now." I said, "Especially not one that I'm gonna call husband." I said, I am trying to get away from this one that I'm with, that I need to go because I don't want to end up behind some bars.
Yes, I know that feeling.
Like, I don't get the hell away from here. You know, what my
One
kids,
of us got to go, or
right?
one of us gonna be dead and not gonna be me.
Don't be me. I ain't doing it. I was like, I'm a nurse. I know how to kill people legally. I was like, I'll bring you home some insulin and work it out for you. But
Man,
but anyway, yeah. So yeah, that was December. In August, I met him.
wow.
So it was like, wow, and I had done my work. I had written down what I wanted in a man and all of these things, and I did my work and I was doing mirror work and all the stuff and I was, clearing out and healing and making sure
Yeah,
that I wasn't attracting the same energy,
right.
because I was like, no, I don't need that because my first husband was cheetah. I call him a super cheater.
Mm.
I wrote this book
Mm.
about him, y'all.
No.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Wrote that book about him. Y'all can get it on Amazon. But
Okay.
yeah, it was powerful because I needed to share that so that people would know that, you can go through all kinds of stuff, but you don't have to give up. You don't have to lay down and die. You can still be nice and kind and sweet. You don't have
Hmm.
to be bitter and living in unforgiveness and, you know,
Right.
all this stuff. You don't got to do all that. You can still go through and you can still, be good,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
we're gonna land this plane.
For the third time. Okay.
It's time to close. We're gonna close.
All right.
I hope that you guys have enjoyed this. I hope that you've enjoyed it as much as we have because it's been so phenomenal and so much fire. And I know that, you will get something out of connecting with Miss Jean July because she is just phenomenal. She's
Thank
phenomenal.
you.
You're welcome.
Blessings to you. I had so much fun.
Absolutely. It's been so good. So, again, thank you so much for joining us on Straight Out of Savannah. It's been we just have had such a good time. And I hope that, something that we said helped you in your journey. So make sure that you like, share, and subscribe on whatever platform that you are listening or watching this, and tell some friends. And I'll see you next time.